it! No! We gotta animate a new ending where I destroy Wander. Animation is so hard! People who do this for a living deserve more credit and respect!
It's often been agreed upon in the animation community that the 2010s was essentially a renaissance era for TV animation. It definitely wasn't perfect, but it broke free from all the abrupt cancellations and lack of new stuff plaguing the late 2000s, and allowed more creative freedom to show creators, giving us a lot of cartoons that are still fondly remembered to this day. I was lucky to have grown up in this period and have watched such classics like The Amazing World of Gumball, Steven Universe, Adventure Time, Clarence, Phineas and Ferb, Ninja Turtles, Harvey Beaks, Loud House, Breadwinners, Sanjay and Craig, Teen Titans Go. Okay, like I said, it wasn't perfect. You haven't even seen those shows in a while, have you? Don't ruin this opening for me! However, there was one that really stood out to me. Probably due to hyperfixation, but whatever. Y'all know what it is already, you've seen the title and thumbnail, it's Wander Over Yonder. This was definitely a real favorite of mine growing up, as I said earlier. Unlike just about every other show I watched where I'd stop following them after a certain point, I stuck with Wander from the moment I discovered it till the day it ended. Granted, it didn't really last that long, but I'm gonna get ahead of myself. The show is gonna be turning 10 years old very soon. August 16th to be precise. Ever since I started doing videos like this, I've been waiting to dedicate a whole video to one of my favorite shows of all time, to honor it turning 10 years old. In this video, I'm gonna be going over the history of the series and how it came to be, the show itself, and the unfortunate cancellation. I really can't wait to talk about this series, so let's stop wasting time and get right into it. Starting with... Back in the mid to late 90s, there was an animator known as Craig Douglas McCracken. He started his career at Cartoon Network, creating two shows, The Powerpuff Girls and Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. Both were massive hits. When Craig was working on Foster's, he would often go back to a doodle of a character with orange fur, a green hat, and a walking cane. However, he never really knew what to do with it, mainly using it for t-shirts and other merch to sell at conventions. At some point, Craig decided to leave Cartoon Network after 17 years due to that weird live-action phase the network was going through at the time, making Foster's Home the second and last show Craig would create for the network. That's when he decided to expand on the little orange dude he created, creating a world and characters around it. He initially made a comic out of these characters, that was never really finished, but then it was pitched to Disney. Disney gave McCracken lots of creative freedom with the show. Production began and the series debuted on August 16th, 2013. As a sneak preview airing after that Phineas and Ferb Marvel crossover. Anyone else remember that? Okay, so that's the origins of the series to the best of my knowledge. Now we can finally delve into... Wander Over Yonder follows an orange furry space nomad named Wander and his best friend Sylvia. They wander, no pun intended, the galaxy together, visiting a variety of different planets and helping anyone they come across. This isn't always made easy, however, as sometimes they would encounter the evil intergalactic conqueror known as Lord Hater, and his watchdog army. Wander would often get in the way, however, thanks to him annoying the shit out of Hater with his goofy optimism and thinking they're friends. The best way I could describe Wander himself is if you took Wilt's urge to help others, and mixed it with SpongeBob's hyperactive optimism. I love Wander, man, such a fun, enduring protagonist, even if his urge to help people can lead to negative effects on himself and others. Like one instance where he and Sylvia are evacuating folks from an active volcano. Then Wander goes back to said volcano just to help some birds escape. In a way, he was sort of like the proper SpongeBob figure in my childhood. Not that I didn't watch or enjoy SpongeBob as a kid, but I definitely found myself more interested in Wander. Not to mention I grew bored of SpongeBob after a certain point. McCracken wrote Wander this way because he was tired of so many shows at the time featuring cynical protagonists, and wanted to mix things up with Wander. I'm not entirely sure what he means because I probably never heard of the cynical protagonist shows he's referring to, but considering that Disney cartoons have become known for having quirky, optimistic protagonists, Wander could have had an impact on these shows. Okay, there's her too. Then there's Wander's best friend Sylvia, who's very different from Wander. Unlike Wander, she's a lot tougher and often resorts to brute force to solve problems. As a kid, I remember not really caring too much for Sylvia as much as I did with Wander, and rewatching it now I can kinda see why. She may not be as enjoyable, but she definitely has funny moments of sass every now and again. It's not like Sylvia's useless either. She's there to keep Wander in line and make sure he doesn't do anything crazy. Even Wander is important to Sylvia because he helps ground her and keeps her temper in line, because later on we see she can be pretty reckless without him. Despite their glaring differences, their friendship is still genuine, and they'll always have their back for one another. Originally this season would have had Wander and Sylvia not like each other at the start, but then grow to like each other by the end of the season. However, Disney didn't want the show to be serialized, so they had to make the duo friends from the start. Season 2 would change things, but more on that later. So Wander and Sylvia are fun protagonists and all, but like I established earlier, there's someone else.
Wrong! It's Great Best Village!
This planet is now under the control of Lord
Lord Hater, the Duke of Destruction, the Monarch of Mayhem, the self-proclaimed greatest in the galaxy. Yeah, he kind of sucks at his job. In the first few episodes, we can actually see him be a competent threat, but it all comes crashing down once Wander gets in the way. That's when we really get to see his true colors. Someone who's whiny, moronic, overly cocky, childish at times, and who doesn't take his job very seriously. However, that's what makes him such an enjoyable character, along with the stellar voice delivery from Keith Ferguson. And his run-ins with Wander are definitely a highlight of the series. Looney Tunes was actually one of the inspirations for this show, along with other classic cartoons. Which makes sense seeing as they both involve the main character annoying the shit out of the antagonist. You may be wondering if Hater has someone to keep him in line when trying to conquer the galaxy. And you'd be correct.
Commander Peepers.
Commander Peepers fills in that Sylvia role for Hater, being second in command of Hater's watchdog army and the straight man of Hater's idiocy. The show even acknowledges that Peepers and Sylvia have a lot in common at one point. He's also voiced by a pretty small guy in the voice acting business. Someone who hasn't had that many roles. Someone you probably know. His name is Tom Kenny. He only voiced Heifer on Rocko's Modern Life, Ice King on Adventure Time, Spyro at one point, and of course, I can't forget his most iconic role, Trevor from KIF. Seriously, go watch KIF, it's a good show. By the way, has anyone ever noticed how Tom has played a major character in every Craig McCracken show? For Powerpuff Girls, it was the narrator and mayor. For Foster's, it was Eduardo. For this, it's Peepers. And for a show after this one, Kid Cosmic, another good show by the way, might talk about it one day, it was an alien named Chuck. In other words, Tom Kenny is pretty much the Bruce Campbell to Craig's Sam Raimi, the Johnny Depp to his Tim Burton, the Sean Gunn to his James Gunn. You get the point. Going back to Wander, Peepers definitely serves his role as a straight man and has plenty of humorous moments. Hater isn't the only villain Wander and Sylvia would encounter on their escapades across the galaxy though. In one episode there's this alien parody where Wander and Sylvia come across a wrecked ship, and there's this deadly alien they have to face. Well, Wander thinks it's a pet and Sylvia wants to kill it. By the end of the episode, it does end up becoming Lord Hater's pet. Then there's Emperor Awesome, who's a lot of fun. Someone who destroys planets with crazy loud parties. I really like that concept for a villain. Like I said, he's really enjoyable personality-wise. We also have Little Bits, a kitty who poses as a stray so she can take Wander and Sylvia to Lord Hater, and who has the power to brainwash people with her goo-goo eyes, even if it doesn't really work on Sylvia. By the way, if I had a nickel for every time a Craig McCracken show featured an evil cat who brainwashes people, I have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but strange that happened twice, right? Not too much else to say about her other than the fact she's super cute. And yes, I know it's the point, but I don't care. And I love her voice.
Lord Hater, I have a wide rendezvous point. Activate the teleportation pad.
Engaging. But before I do, say teleportation again.
Teleportation.
Okay. Then now say, 6 thick thistle stick stacks. You're no fun.
The next villain was introduced in season 2, but I'm counting it anyway. Dr. Screwball Jones. Someone who wants to spread joy throughout the universe like Wander, but goes about it in a completely different way. Where Wander simply shows other people the right path, as you can see, he can be really annoying with it. Dr. Screwball forces people to be happy by forcing his tickle fetish on others. He's also voiced by Weird Al Yankovic, who's also made a guest appearance in every cartoon in existence. And he has a killer villain song in his debut episode. So lots of the show's other villains are great and all, but they don't really get a lot of screen time, which is probably the reason why people tend to ignore them in their videos. But let me remind you, the same guy who did this show also did the Powerpuff Girls, which has a much more beloved and remembered cast of villains. So maybe if Wander's other villains got more development and screen time, people would talk about them and appreciate them more. Oh well. Anyway, can we talk about how cool this galaxy is? The worlds Wander and Sylvia come across are so varied and fun to be in. There's a great variety of planets they visit and creatures they meet, each being more distinct and memorable from the last. One instance, it could be a tennis ball looking planet with a giant freaking dog destroying it, a big ass shopping mall type planet, a planet inhabited by goat people, a talking planet that can create whatever, a fucking doorknob that takes you to an empty void where you can create whatever. They really took advantage of the show's galaxy setting to create such fun and memorable locations. And the colorful animation in the show definitely helps. The visuals are also somewhat inspired by lava lamps, and yeah, you can kind of see it when watching this show with how loopy and rounded everything looks. The character animation is nice and expressive too, and their slapstick, while not laugh out loud funny, is definitely on point. Season 1 as a whole definitely isn't a bad season, far from it. But admittedly, some episodes are definitely more enjoyable than others. Makes sense seeing as this is only the first season, and the quality definitely elevates in season 2. But I guess I should share some of my favorite episodes this season. The Hero is a good one. It's about Wander and Sylvia helping this hero named Sir Bradley Starlight, with James Marsden guest starring. I mainly love how obsessive Bradley gets with how the story's supposed to go, where he's supposed to be the one to save the princess, and Wander and Sylvia are supposed to be nothing more than sidekicks. The day and the night are interesting ones too. The day is about Sylvia breaking out of Hader's ship, with Wander completely knocked out. And the night is about Wander dealing with noises so Sylvia could sleep properly. Both episodes are enjoyable, but what's interesting is that not only does the night pick up right where the day left off, but it also ends with Wander and Sylvia back in Hader's prison. Almost as this episode is in some kind of loop. The Void is a fun excuse for animators to flex the show's animation, and it's an episode that really keeps you wondering what kind of crazy shit's gonna happen next. The Brainstorm is a great showcase of Hader and Peeper's dynamic, with Peepers coming up with all these plans to take over a planet, but Hader constantly doubts each plan by explaining how Wander could intervene. Not much else to say here, it's just really funny. The Buddies is another funny one. With Wander and Hader stranded on a planet where they encounter some other guys Lord Hader trapped there. It's really funny, and this song in this episode's a banger. Lastly, there's The Rider, where Sylvia's old friend, Ryder, voiced by Will Arnett, man, this show really has a thing for guest stars, huh? Comes over as he is the key to a vault owned by Lord Hader. It's an episode that really shows why Sylvia needs Wander by her side. Like I said before, without him she could be pretty reckless, especially with Ryder being a bad influence. So Wander already has a solid starting season with fun, likable characters, imaginative worlds, and nice animation, but things will only get much, 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 much better from here. Season 2 starts with our main characters getting into their usual shenanigans, with Lord Hader taking over a planet and Wander pissing him off, Sylvia fighting off the watchdogs, and Peepers trying to keep Hader in line, even telling him that because of Wander distracting him, he lost a lot of his territory and is no longer the greatest in the galaxy. This all gets interrupted, however, with a large ship arriving on the planet and shooting a big-ass drill through it. Who could possibly be running this ship and what's their aim? Wander, being Wander, wants to welcome this new individual to the galaxy with a gift basket, because in his own words, an enemy is just a friend you haven't made yet. Sylvia follows him out of concern, of course, and Hader and Peepers go on the ship so that Hader can show this new threat who really runs the galaxy. After encountering an army of killer robots, they finally meet the individual running this whole operation. One of the robots refers to this guy as Lord Dominator, but doesn't really talk or communicate with them that much. This especially pisses Wander off. They eventually do make it off the ship, but are still left wondering,
Who was that guy?
At the end, we as the audience would learn that Dominator was a girl the whole time. I remember as a kid thinking she would be a one-time character and would never show up again. Oh, what a fool I was. A few episodes later, Wander would discover this.
Lady?
And hearing about Hader wanting a girlfriend would use a fucking ring pop as some all-powerful ring of invincibility for Lord Hader and Dominator to come after. So in his eyes, they could fall in love and forget all about being evil. But surprise to him, it would have every villain in the galaxy at war for a candy ring. By the end of the episode, the secret is revealed to everyone and Lord Hader becomes a massive simp for a good chunk of the season, doing everything in his power to get Dominator to like him. From making life-size toy cars, playing rock music, and even having the Watchdogs make a crappy cartoon. Wander's still supportive of the two getting together, much to Sylvia's dismay, because she rightfully thinks that the galaxy would be even more fucked if these two got together. However, she still acknowledges that his heart is still in the right place and would often help him help Hader get with Dominator. Dominator herself was honestly a fantastic addition to the show. In her debut episode, you really do get the sense that she's much more serious and menacing than any other villain we've seen before her. Of course, it'd be out of place if they made her completely serious, so they still made her kinda goofy. But it really works. Craig even says that she has traits of each of the main characters. She's much stronger than Sylvia, a much better villain than Hader, with her wanting to destroy planets instead of conquering them, even having design similarities to Hader, which the show even points out. And much like how Wander loves to be friendly and optimistic, Dominator loves being evil and watching everyone around her in misery. That's honestly what I love most about Dominator. I've come to notice that I often enjoy a villain more when they know they're evil and have fun with it. I do love more complex villains, but I guess that's just my preferred villain type, you know? Dominator's at her most enjoyable when we see her in delight over destroying planets and just being a heartless monster. All in all, a wonderful addition to the show, who's both really fun as a character, but still menacing to most of the other characters and leaving a massive impact across the galaxy. Dominator isn't the only thing the season has going for it. There's plenty of other things I appreciate here. Like I established earlier, Craig wanted to make Wander more serialized from the start, but Disney wouldn't allow it. In Season 2, however, he was allowed to make the show a bit more story-heavy, while still keeping it mostly episodic, with Dominator, of course, being the overarching big bad throughout. The other characters are handled pretty damn well, too. We get to see new sides of Wander other than his kindness. In one episode, we actually get to see him actually want to take down some bad guy, Dr. Screwball. instead of wanting to befriend him, and he becomes this Batman wannabe. It's really fun. In another episode, we get to see him scared for his life, as him and Sylvia go through this spooky forest to find something to help them beat Dominator. We also get bits and pieces of his past. Like in one episode where he goes to this cave and he gets multiplied, and Sylvia has to gather all the clones, one of them being this helpless and scared Wander. And one of the clones says the reason why he helps people is because he knows what it's like to be helpless. In another episode where he accidentally gets time travel orbals, I didn't mention this before, but orbals are bubble things that Wander and Sylvia use to go from planet to planet. And we learned that Wander had a couple other names before Wander. He even had another villain to constantly annoy before Hater, Major Threat. And in the previous episode, we actually see Wander reform the guy. I actually like how we learn very little about Wander's past and only get tiny samples, because it just makes him more interesting to watch. As for Sylvia, we get a whole episode dedicated to her and Wander going back to her home planet and reuniting with her family. It's definitely a funny episode. Sylvia's brothers and her grandma are great. And the ending, while it was a bit of mood whiplash, it was still pretty heartfelt. We see Sylvia's mom was only hard on her because she was disappointed that she came back after her and Wander's impact across the galaxy. We even see in the time travel episode she used to be a bounty hunter, until Wander came into her life and changed her for the better, further proving that their friendship is genuinely important. As for Lord Hater, like I said earlier, his whole arc throughout the season is trying to get Dominator to date him. And Peepers is trying to keep him in line and focused on taking over the galaxy and getting rid of Dominator, which is pretty damn enjoyable. Near the end of the season, Hater finally realizes that Dominator doesn't want to date him, and for the last few episodes, he accepts it. Other than that, there's an episode where Hater fires Peepers, and we see the repercussions of that. And there's another episode where Wander gets his finger stuck in a black hole, and we see Hater annoy the shit out of Wander for a change, which is pretty damn funny. Hater even got more expressive this time around. The animation in general does get better, but it's definitely more noticeable with Hater. Now it's time to share my standout episodes this season. The Breakfast is a simple premise of seeing Wander and Hater literally from two sides of the screen making breakfast. It really is a better showcase of the two's living conditions, where Wander's in a wild planet where he has to work harder for his food, where Hater's in a ship where he has all the resources he needs. Not too much else to say about this one other than it's really fun. Moving on. It is a classic scenario for a show like this, where Wander tags Hater and it distracts him from a mission. It's funny, and it was neat seeing Peepers using Hater's tag obsession to his advantage by the end. The new toy is one where Hater tries impressing Dominator. Here it's with a life-size toy he made called the Hate RV. And many really funny shenanigans involving the new toy ensue. From outtakes with action shots to having to pump up the boat manually, it's great. The black cube is one that tries to make you feel bad for a cube. And it works. For better context, the Black Cube of Darkness was a minor side character who has the power to suck people's souls out. This is the only episode where he has a major role. And throughout it, he's getting so much crap, and all he's trying to do is go about his life. All because he's a known supervillain. Like, come on, they sometimes have feelings too. By the end of the episode, Sylvia does call everyone out for treating him the way they did, and the Black Cube is a good guy now. Very wholesome episode. The Eye on the Skull Ship is the episode right after this, and it's about some random watchdog named Andy, documenting the day-to-day life of the watchdogs. Not much to say here other than it's really fun. Moving on. The cartoon is another one of Hater's attempts to get Dominator to fuck him. He gets the watchdogs to create this crappy 80s-esque cartoon, which is hilarious. I even love this PSA segment at the end. And this line is a masterful work of dialogue.
Animation is so hard! People who do this for a living deserve more credit and respect!
The rival involves Hater and Peepers seeing Emperor Awesome getting invited on Lord Dominator's ship. Hater thinks they're dating while Peepers thinks Awesome has some kind of secret weapon. Hater's delusions are just priceless. Even believing Dominator has 2 smooching rooms, another great episode. My Fair Hades is a musical episode where Hater gets invited to surrender to Lord Dominator. But he thinks it's a date, and he enlists Wander's help to get ready. Meanwhile, Sylvia teams up with Peepers to use a weapon seen in a previous episode, the Frostonium, to freeze Dominator's ship. The show has had song numbers before, and they're really great. And the songs in this episode especially go hard. There's even actual story progression, like with Dominator getting ice powers from the Frostonium. And like we established earlier, Hater accepting the fact that Dominator doesn't want to date him. All in all, great episode. Lastly, we have the penultimate episode, The Flower, which might be the best episode of the whole series. It's about Wander and Sylvia trying their hardest to protect a flower in an array of destroyed planets from Dominator. Sylvia especially being concerned that Wander's losing hope for their galaxy. It pretty much embodies what the whole show is about, trying to stay hopeful and optimistic in the worst possible times. The episode still managed to have a few jokes, mainly with Dominator being the delightfully bad bitch she is.
Oh wow, this is seriously really sad for both of you. Hold up!
But by the end, the flower gets completely beaten up. But it turns out Wander never lost hope even if he was really sad. Man, this is such a wonderful episode. which, like I said, embodies the show's message about optimism, being hopeful in the worst situations. This whole season was just wonderful. It's a great evolution of what came before with a phenomenal new villain, more character development and lore, while still being largely episodic like the first season. With 2 great seasons out of the way, now it's time to talk about... While Craig was given a lot of creative control of the show, he also had to make some compromises to satisfy the network. As stated earlier, he wanted to make the show serialized from the start with 20-minute episodes, but Disney wanted it to be episodic with 11-minute episodes. And while Craig managed to accomplish a lot with what he envisioned for the series, again, he had to make compromises. It wasn't that easy for Craig to get through the network and try to please them, but that was just the beginning. Ratings for season 1 were pretty solid, despite some wonky scheduling, with over 30 million viewers. However, Disney had the infinite IQ idea to shove their show to their sister channel Disney XD in March of 2014, which, by the way, not a lot of people have. After that, the ratings started to dip in the show's second season. Jeepers, Scooby, I wonder why. And yeah, that was kind of the reason why the show was cancelled. In all seriousness, why didn't they keep the show on the main network to properly see if Wander would attract any more viewers? Like I said, not a lot of people own Disney XD, so it's kind of their fault ratings dipped. I wouldn't say this is quite as bad as how, say, Nickelodeon treats their shows, where they really don't care about other shows and only want to milk SpongeBob and Loud House till the sun blows up, because at least Craig got to work on a season 2 while the show was airing on Disney XD. But this is still just so dumb. Speaking of season 2, Craig was very proud of the work he and the crew put into it. He really felt like he created an expanded universe, and had plans for more expansion in season 3. One of the characters intended to show up was this monkey dude seen in the episode The Waste of Time, and at the end of the season 2 finale, we get a tease of this broken space shuttle sparking with screaming chimp sounds, and presumably Lord Hater laughing. Seems like this monkey would have played a major part in the 3rd season. We even see what looks like an American flag on the broken shuttle. So would we have seen what Earth looks like in this universe? Seriously, what did Craig have up his sleeve for this 3rd season? Well, we never found out because Disney decided to cancel the show. And the show would air its last episode, The End of the Galaxy, on June 27th, 2016. Which definitely works as a season finale as Dominator gets defeated and the planets regrow. Mainly because bits of the flower in the previous episode fell into the cracks of each planet. But as a series finale, it leaves a lot to be desired. After Dominator leaves the show, it just kind of resets to a season 1 status quo, with Hater continuing to conquer and Wander pissing him off. And like I said, clear setup for season 3 in the credits. I fondly remember watching this episode as a kid and waiting patiently for new episodes. Of course, not knowing of the show's cancellation. Eventually, I would find out. Don't really remember how or when though. Oh well. After that, Craig left Disney and sort of just enjoyed his life before making his next cartoon for Netflix, Kid Cosmic. And Wander was just kinda left in the dust by Disney. It really does suck. Wander Over Yonder was a wonderful cartoon, with a fascinating and fun world, enjoyable and enduring characters, and vibrant animation. Ever since I discovered the show's cancellation, I've really been hoping for a 3rd season. But unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be happening anytime soon, seeing as Craig is busy with reboots of the Powerpuff Girls and Fosters for Cartoon Network. But much like Wander and the Flower, however, that doesn't mean I've completely lost hope for a continuation of Wander. I still really want it to happen. Definitely more than a fucking Phineas and Ferb reboot. I'd even be okay if Craig wasn't in charge, seeing as, like I said, he's busy at the moment with other shows. As long as whoever would be in charge is a big fan and understands the show and its characters. Even if a season 3 never happens, I'll always have these 2 seasons to go back to and stay entertained by. These 2 wonderful seasons of television that never fail to bring me joy. So thank you, Craig McCracken. Thank you for making this show. Thank you for creating such lovable characters. Thank you for these themes of optimism even in the worst places. Thank you for creating one of my favorite shows of all time. Happy 10-year anniversary to Wander Over Yonder. Okay, bye.
Oh, wander over yonder and check out this and that. If you wander over yonder, best be sure to wear your hat. All the things that you will see, and you certainly will be free if you wander over yonder, just you and me.